back, everybody. This is another episode of the Exodus Project. I'm joined with a very special guest today, my newly made friend, Mr. Joe Buchanan.
Hi, everybody.
Country music star, country music six-pointed star, right? Check out his music on Spotify, Apple Music, 2 full lengths, which we're going to be talking about. But excellent story here, beautiful story. You can hear it in his music, and we're going to get right into it. So everyone hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give Joe and I a big thumbs up. But okay, man, we're just gonna jump right into this.
I'm into it. Thanks for having me, by the way. I'm super excited to talk to you, and just an absolute delight to be here.
Right. And for everyone who may not know, I'm going to preface this, and I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit as we move forward. But my friend Rabbi Stuart Federow, who I do shows with on, just had one yesterday, rather frequently, he and Joe are actually very close friends. So
very close.
Yeah. So yeah, what first made you really start questioning, your Christian faith? Like, where did it all begin?
Yeah. Well, so it's interesting because people only know what they know, right? So it's always hard to level judgment at maybe kind of where you were in your own life, because you really only know what you know, especially when you're young. You don't know how to look beyond kind of just what you're finding, and questioning feels bad. My grandfather at a very young age gave me a really simple understanding of God. He said God's in the world and in the way people work. He said you can see, the hand of a creator, and God wants you to do good things with your life. It was like a really simple foundational understanding of God. And it made total sense to me as a kid. I mean, it was hard to not see kind of a creator in the way things were working and everything just flowing together and all that. But as I started seeking out organized religion, like some definition, like I want to study, I want to talk to people who have some materials, I kept running into things that were very counter to that.
Yeah.
Like the idea that we can talk openly here, right?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Like the idea that I was going to go to hell.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, what are we talking about? They're like, well, it's eternal torment and damnation. And I'd be like, well, but what about people who live a good life? And they're like, well, it doesn't matter if they haven't done this thing, then this happens. And immediately my thought is, that doesn't sound like a God that loves you. That sounds like,
pump the brakes here a second. Yeah.
That sounds awful. It also makes, and I'm sorry, but that for me, it kind of makes God sound less than everything you claim God is, because God has no control over that. God can't just say, you know what, that's a bad move. You've had a good life. Like, God doesn't do that unless you've done this one thing. That doesn't sound like an all-powerful being. It sounds like something else entirely. And I just, I would ask those questions constantly. What about people that have never found God? What about people that have no awareness of any of what you're teaching? What happens to them? Well, it's unfortunate. That's why we do missions out there. But that doesn't seem okay.
Yeah.
So things just didn't make sense. And the problem was that the more you question, and so some people were super great. Like, there's a lot of beautiful things about things that Christians do. There's a lot of beautifulness or beautifulness is not a word. There's a lot of beauty in some of that, right? The things that feel good and all this kind of stuff, and being good, like all of that, like that's great. But these kind of core foundational things you weren't to question. And the problem is that the more you did, the more you were seen as kind of just trouble. Like, well, you're struggling with your faith. No, my faith is rock solid. That's why I'm asking questions, Oh, you got a veil over your eyes. No, that's not the case, or it doesn't seem like it.
Exactly. In fact, I'm not struggling with the faith at all. I'm struggling with the being I'm supposed to have faith in.
That's right. That's right. God seems easy. People seem to be making it really difficult.
Yeah.
I don't know. But what happens though is eventually, especially when you're young, I think it really I mean, I think it has an effect on everybody, but they carry it, I think, especially into their adult years. But when you're young, 50 million Elvis fans can't be wrong. I went to every church you could think of. I mean, Revival, Seventh-day Adventists, to Southern Baptist, Lutheran, all these different churches, finding the same core message everywhere with a little different seasoning, which, even in Judaism, we have, different branches that do things a little differently, but with the same foundation. Right. And eventually, when that's all you can find, you go, well, I guess I'm the problem. I guess I'm the problem, and there's something wrong with me. Yeah. And maybe they're right. Maybe I'm not good enough like this. So it led to a really like a self-hating period of my life and I was like, God and I are going to settle up along the way, but that's not a God that I think I believe in, but I don't know what's what, but maybe I am the problem. I was very lost. Like I had no foundation, but that was all I knew. So I just finally went, I guess that's what is, I guess. Yeah.
So, I mean, we just really touched on like those core fundamental values, I guess, are what, were tough. But if you had to choose like a major question or maybe like a passage that you may have read in the New Testament or the Tanakh, what really concerned you? Did you see the contradictions? Was that a contributing factor, or was it really the core doctrine of hell that started pushing you out of that?
Yeah, I mean, there was just a lot of weird stuff in the New Testament, and that it was, you were taught like this is it, and you can't question it. That bothered me. Number one, I think anything worth doing is worth questioning hard. Right. And even in the Torah, we can say, I disagree with God's decision to do that. That was not okay. We can say that. We're empowered to say that. Why wasn't it okay? What would we do different? How should we live our life? We learn from those things. Right. It's so important, and you can't do that with the New Testament. It's just that's what it is. You don't question it. You can go, that seems odd, but I guess God knows. But your question was, what was it I found that made me start questioning? Yeah. It was never a line in anything. It was a person that I met. Can I tell you this story real quick? Yeah. I don't know if this was like you wanted to get into this later, if I'm like introducing it now. No, right. So when I met my wife, I was working in a gaming store. I was in my very early 20s, maybe 20, 21. And we sold like board games and D&D. That was it. And she comes walking in. I lost my mind.
Forever DM right here, by the way.
So. Hey, same here, man. I should show you our live. We just finished putting our library back together from remodeling. We run games like every week.
Nice.
Yeah. We should talk, man. April and I switch off DMing roles. Anyway, so she comes in and I fell madly in love. I ended up playing her a song that was like the worst teen angsty thing you've ever heard in your life. And we ended up getting married pretty quick. And I start going to all these churches because I'm like, what do you think about God? I have a strong belief, but I feel like now that I'm older, maybe I'll see things a little differently. I can learn something new. And she was like, that's not my thing. If you want to go, I'll go with you, but I'm not really here for that. I'll just be there for you. Well, I started finding the same stuff at places that I would go to, and April wouldn't participate. She wouldn't say the prayers. She wouldn't sing the hymns. She wouldn't do anything. And it was weird to me because she sings all the time. And I ask her, and of course she's like, I'm just here for you. That's it. And eventually in a relationship, you decide, are we doing it together or am I doing it? And they're just coming with me. Right. And after a while, compromise turns into resentment, and we weren't going to do that. I wasn't okay with that. So fast forward, I gave up on organized religion at that point entirely because I was like, this just doesn't work for me, I guess. Fast forward to we're at the Holocaust Museum 13 years into our marriage. And she tells me outside, she says, I want to get in touch with my people's faith. And I said, well, who are your people? What are you talking about? And she was like, I'm Jewish. And I said, well, what? When does that how'd that happen? How'd you get Jewish? And she goes, I was born Jewish. And yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. You can't just be born Jewish. And she's like, Joe, that's how it works. And I'm like, you don't know how it works. And she's like, no, you don't know how it works. And I didn't, I knew that she had a Star of David necklace in her jewelry box, and it belonged to her. And I thought she had it to like honor her mother, who I knew her mother was Jewish, but I had no idea that is a thing that's passed. Like I knew nothing about Judaism at all. I didn't even know it was honestly, I didn't know it was even an existing religion. And I thought I was smart, man. I was in my 20s, and I live in Houston. We have the biggest conservative synagogue in the country, but all down the highway, it's like Six Flags Over Jesus all the way down the road. There's no shuls on the side of the road. They're back in the neighborhoods, which makes sense because people live near the shul and all that. So anyway, I told her, I said, I don't know anything. We should find somebody. So we did. We found Rabbi Stuart Federow right down the road. And I walk in the door, and he always cracks up when I tell the story. I walk in the door, and April's with me and Nathan's with me, our son, who found out he was Jewish. He had no idea because of, through her. And I walk in the door, and Stuart goes, "Hi, Stuart the rabbi." And I was like, "Oh, this guy is great. Like, this is great." And I said, "My name's Joe. It's my wife, April, and son, Nathan. They're Jewish. I'm not, but none of us know what that means." April didn't have any kind of observance in her life other than from when she was really, really young. That necklace was from an Afikoman bag.
Oh, wow.
And like, parents split up, families move around. She was an Air Force brat, like moving around, all this. So like Judaism and Jewish, all that just left at a very young age.
Right.
But she held on to who she was, just didn't know what to do with it. So anyway, so Stuart looks at me. Here's to answer your question. Boy, Steve, I'll tell you what, it's a long way around the barn to get to the front door, brother, but here's the answer. Stuart looked right at me and he goes, do you want me to just sum it up for you? I said, yeah, that'd be great. Not realizing like, wow, what a thing to ask of anybody, right? And he goes, I apologize for these dogs in the background. He goes, there's one God and there's nothing wrong with you. And he said, you're loved by your creator exactly as you are. You don't have to do anything to be loved by God. You're not damaged goods. You're not separate from God. You're connected and whole, and it happened at birth, and you're loved just like this. He said, you're part of creation and loved by your creator. And he said, you don't have to do anything else to earn that. It was earned at birth. And he said, and then you do good because it puts more good in the world, not for a reward or a fear of punishment later on. And we don't know what happens next, but we know what happens now. He said, this is the gift and you got to take care of it. And I mean, it was, I always tell people there's like 30 years of therapy all at once.
Yeah.
And
honestly,
go ahead.
When I first left, I don't know how much of my story you may know, but I was actually a minister. I was a, very conservative, fundamental Pentecostal minister, like on the church's payroll and everything.
Yeah.
So when I left, I carried a lot of shame about that.
Right.
Like I felt like for a time in my life I was lying to people,
Oh yeah.
And Stuart was actually the one I talked to, and I told him all this, and he told me that exact same thing. He's like, you cannot blame yourself for what you did. At the time, what you said you thought was true, and I wouldn't be here now if it weren't for those years prior from the, because it took my time as a minister, my deep study and so on, to even find the problems and ask the questions. So
right.
Yeah, it was, hearing you say that was like, major flashback. You know what I mean? It was, so
it's an intense moment when it hits you.
I'm very thankful for Stuart Federow. I
Yeah.
just hope he knows that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, he's a good man. Well, I'm sure he's going to see this and get all his love that we're sending him through the screen. And, that was, that absolutely, kind of like you said, it just absolutely rocked my world. But it felt also familiar at the same time because it makes so much sense. Mm-hmm. And you go, this makes so much sense. And I remember my son, who really never talked a lot about God or anything like that. I said, this is yours. You already have it, but I think you get to decide what you do with it. So is this something that, feels good to you? And he was like, yeah, this makes sense. This makes a lot of sense. And they actually I went through the conversion process with Stuart. They actually did it too, even though they didn't have to. They just wanted to learn, as much as they could. But yeah, man, it brought our family closer and did so much good in our lives. That's why I started writing the music I did, to try to share like these differences. I mean, not just the differences. I mean, for people who are coming out of Christianity, there's a lot. I mean, it's easy to be super wounded during that process. You can become cut off from your family. You can lose friends. You can lose a lot, but there's so much healing and so much realness. And I was like, I want to write about that and share that and put that out there. Hopefully do some good the way it, did good for me. So, yeah.
So, we got to this point, you met Stuart. Prior to that, when there were these issues going on, did you go to anyone else? Did you ask anyone else? Did you ever get any answers prior to this, or?
So before going to Stuart, we went to the internet, which at the time was not as well organized on all this as it is now. Now it's like you can really find some great resources, but at the time it was there wasn't a lot on there about, because I was, I'm a fan of like, let's say it like this. I want to go swimming. Steve, I want to swim so bad. I love swimming. I love swimming in rivers far more than lakes. Lakes are terrifying. Let's don't do that. But I like rivers a lot. But I want to know what's in the river before I get in it.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I was ready to go swimming since I was a kid, but I could never make sense of what was in the water. And all of a sudden this made sense. So I was ready to dive on in. So I was hungry for information. I wasn't finding what I wanted to find online that answered very clearly things for me. It was all very like heavy prose and very like, and there was Kabbalah and I'm like, look, just somebody speak plainly to me.
Right.
Give me the A, B, C, and D, and let me figure out what I need to do next.
Yeah, and then we can talk about Z later, right?
Yeah, I don't need 16 chapters. Give me the bullet points and to start me off. Of course, I'm impatient too. But Stuart was the first person that we spoke to, period. And the only reason we went there, I didn't know who the rabbi was there. I just knew that was the synagogue that was closest to our house.
Yeah.
He was 20 minutes away, and I'm like, oh, this is perfect. Let's go get some answers. Mm-hmm. It's the only reason we went there. And then of course we just absolutely fell in love with the place and with him, and it just wound up being where we went. So yeah.
Right. So your wife really sparked it. The three of you were all in. Yeah. Did you receive any pushback from like your family, your friends outside of your wife and your son? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because all my friends were super cool with it. They were like, oh, okay, great. Yeah, man. Sure. Like it was like you find out who the real ones are, and they're the ones that are both supportive and also seem to care the least. They're like, yeah, cool, man. Whatever you want to do, great. Let me know when Hanukkah rolls around. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they couldn't care less, because they're not friends with you because of the beliefs. They're friends with you because of you just as a whole.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of acquaintances. I have very few like close friends, especially then. It kept all them. As far as family goes, I'm very close with my wife's side of the family, and I'll just say that.
Gotcha.
We're very close and do a lot. Both the Jewish side of her family and the Christian side of her family. We're super, super close. We do stuff all the time. Cool story. Can I tell you one more? Man, I hope you let me know if I need to stop talking,
go right
Joe.
Ahead, man.
You're like, I got a plan and I'm trying to stick to it, man.
No. I like it to be candid. You just go right ahead.
Yeah. So everybody knows we didn't plan a drop of this, and I love it so much because it just feels like hanging out. I'm a big fan.
Definitely.
Nathan found out he was Jewish when he was 12, which meant he was going to become a bar mitzvah at 13.
Yep.
So that's a lot of learning to do in a short period of time. But by the time he was 13, he read from the Torah, he chanted, he led Friday and Saturday services at Stuart's congregation. And the cool thing is, April's mom, who was Jewish, was there at his bar mitzvah. She'd never had a bat mitzvah in her life. So she gets called up to the Torah. And then right after she says the blessing before the reading of the Torah, and then they cover, and then she says, the blessing after the reading of the Torah. And Stuart says, hold on a minute, let's cover the Torah. So they cover the Torah, and he looks at her and he says, Sharon, you've just had your bat mitzvah. And there wasn't a dry eye in the house. I was crying, she was crying, everybody's crying. It was absolutely beautiful the way this has rippled kind of through our families in different ways and affected things in different ways.
Right.
It's interesting. It's like dropping a big rock in a pond, and these ripples go whoosh, and they hit everything, whether you want them to or not, and you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned how people reacted to this family-wise, and the question came up early on, like Christmas is coming up, right? So I get asked a lot, like, what do y'all do for Christmas? And April and I, we don't do Christmas in our house, but we have family members we know who do and friends that do. So we love going to people's Christmas parties. We'll bring a gift. It's their holiday, and we want to. They're inviting us to come and be there for their holiday. It's beautiful. Just like if anybody from any culture or religion invites you to come join their holiday party, what a wonderful thing. And especially in Judaism, we believe in being partners with the world. Although we have these laws that we're to follow, and these things that are ours and things that are not. It doesn't mean that we build that fence so high that we have unawareness of the world. We should be good neighbors with the world and do good work together, because that whole idea, right? Like, it doesn't matter what you believe. You're loved by God. Right. If you're going to follow Judaism, if you're going to be Jewish, or you're going to follow these laws or whatever, you go do those things. That's how that works. But all this other stuff, it doesn't mean that's not something that, somebody can go do. Your neighbor across the street, my neighbor, I don't need my neighbor to be Jewish. I don't care if they are.
Right.
I want us to be good neighbors for each other. And that's far more important than whatever they believe next door.
Right.
Now if they're coming over and banging on my door and trying to missionize Timmy all the time and judging us, and all this kind of stuff, that's a whole different thing. That's completely wrong.
Right.
But I just want to be good neighbors with them. And I try to take that philosophy out to the rest of the world, right? How do I inform people? What do we believe? And how do we just be better neighbors? My neighbor, actually, speaking of neighbors, found out that I was Jewish 2 years ago, and it was the funniest thing. I put up this huge Star of David, like this, just obscenely large Star of David on the side of my house for Hanukkah. And this was a couple of years ago. And he walks out and he sees it, and he sees the Hanukkah in the window, that's lit. And he looks at it and he goes, "You're Jewish?" And I said, "Yeah." "Yeah, I am." And he goes, "Huh, that's neat." I was like, "Thanks, man."
That's neat.
and he just kind of patted me on the shoulder and went back in his house. And what a good neighbor.
Yeah, I can definitely relate. Clearly I'm the only one in my family who believes this way,
Oh, really?
And, yeah, and having not just my shalom bias with my wife, but my whole family too. Of course I got pushed back on this, because here's the thing: when you leave, everyone likes to look at things as black and white issues, cut and dry. Well, anyone who lives in the world we live in knows that nothing is a black and white, cut and dry issue.
Right.
And so of course I got the pushback. I got lecture upon lecture, but when you have a response, when you know what you believe in and your faith is firm, it really makes an impact. And it's gotten to the point where we just mutually agree to, not talk about it, because what's crazy is, when I would speak with this to my grandparents or whatever, I'd bring up a point and I could see the cogs start to turn. and they're like, wow, that makes total sense. What I believe doesn't make sense. But Jesus is God, that's what was always
Right.
fallen back upon. So it's like I can tell that, I'm making you think. So
Right.
you aren't just disregarding my position, but you just have this, there's just that one thing there you can't let go of, you know what I mean?
Right.
So it's now gotten to the point where I have no problem, I'm also a Noachide, but I have no problem going
Beautiful.
to my family's house. For
Right.
holidays or whatever. They realize I'm not there to celebrate the holiday, but you're my family. I want to spend time with my family,
That's right.
So, yeah, I totally can understand. Totally.
Isn't it a nice, I mean, it's a challenging point
Right.
to be at where there's
And
always
one
that
more point. How
worry.
am I showing Hashem if, you guys are all together happy as a family, but I just have to sit at home and grex about everything. You know what I mean? How am I showing the light of Hashem if I can't at least just be there smiling and happy, and we mutually understand that, I don't believe
Right.
this, that's fine, but you're my family and I love you,
Right.
So yeah, I totally get
Right.
it.
Yeah, it's tough. And at the same time, it's hard and it's also weirdly liberating.
Yeah.
Um, and it's that duality, I think, is that's pretty that's that's pretty common in the Torah, living with both like, yeah, this is great, but also like, wow, this is hard.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's living, the anyway. Wow, what a challenge. We were at I mentioned April has two different kind of sides to her family.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and I remember we were on one side, and it was we were there for, I believe, Thanksgiving, and there was a lot of family there, all Christian, and there was no alcohol allowed in the house,
Mm.
and we said, well, it's Shabbos is coming, right? So Friday night, we would like to have a small Shabbat service. We want to have our Shabbos, and can we have the wine? Can we get some wine and have it in the garage? And they were like, perfectly fine, because it was like a dining area set up in there and all kinds of stuff. It was a
Gotcha.
really nice little garage. So we're like, that way it's out of the house. They did the sweetest thing, and it was so heartwarming, is they said, why don't you bring it inside and let us see what you do? And man, you talk about, I mean, I feel just choked up thinking about this. And so we come in the home, and we showed them how to do, the blessing over the wine and the blessing over the bread. And it was really beautiful. And then we went out and we had our, said our prayers and everything. But it was so funny because somebody asked us, what does the bread represent? And I'm immediately thinking, oh, they're thinking about like communion and stuff, right? And I said, well, the bread is, God gives the earth and the seed, and the grain grows, and then we take that and we make bread. So it's like a representation of the partnership with God,
Yeah.
and it's
Partner in
delicious.
creation. Yeah.
A partner in creation, right? It's a beautiful thing. And they were like, what about the wine? And I'm like, it's not blood. It's just delicious,
Yeah.
and it's this, you can make it poetic, right? The sweetness of life and all this kind of stuff. But, wine is something that we use to celebrate things with, and Shabbos is worth celebrating. And that's truly it. That's all
Right.
those mean. And that's okay. And they were like, oh, so it's like this thankfulness for just the things around you in your life, as opposed to going, well, this one thing, it actually means these 20 other. No, it just means
Yeah.
this. And that's great.
Right.
So that was cool, getting to share those blessings with them. And they were, there was a lot of suspicion kind of at first, but I was honored that they were okay with it to see, that was beautiful, because they don't want it to be two separate worlds, even though religiously we may believe completely different things, that we can still do good work together and be okay with each other. That was important.
Beautiful.
A lot of love in that. But I definitely have the other side of it too. From not from her side. I've got letters and things that I've saved over the years. So like, yeah, I'm sorry to, yeah, it's tough for anybody going through that, man. And people,
definitely.
People lose a lot walking away.
Yeah. I mean, I can just say for myself, I had a lot of friends, and they all vanish, you know.
Yeah.
So it's tough. It makes you really puts Avraham in perspective. You know,
Yeah.
dropped everything, walked away, and
Huge.
yeah. So that, I mean, smashed idols in his dad's workshop. You know what I mean? Like it really
Right.
just puts all that in perspective. Like, wow, what a man this was. You know. So
Yeah. And I think championing your beliefs is so important, right? I mean, and I expect anybody to do that, whether they're a Christian, whether they're Jewish, whether they're anything, like whatever
mhm.
you believe, if you believe that, you should feel empowered by it and okay. Because if you don't, if you feel somehow reduced by it, then maybe questioning it
Yeah.
should be first on your list. You know,
Mm.
if it makes you feel small and not empowered and somehow like you're not comfortable with it, there's probably some deeper explanation there that needs to happen.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
Avraham, what a beautiful example, just going straight in and smashing those idols, you know,
Yeah.
and standing up to all that. Yeah, it's
Uh-huh.
for sure.
It's it's almost like divine providence that we got on this topic, because my very next question was, looking back, did you notice any behaviors, whether it be in the church or however, that you now feel liberated from since you've converted to Judaism? Did it ever make you feel small? I guess that's the way to look at it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you have when you can look around and see all the beautiful things that are here for us and given, by God, that we have this opportunity and time and all the wonderful things associated with being alive, and then to go, I'm somehow not worthy of this unless I do something that I can't make sense of,
Right.
is just a hard thing to wrap your head around. And then, with thinking about things like hell and being told that you're going to go to hell, and, and well, if you're, because so and so did this and they're going to go to hell, and it's like, why are you? It feels like blackmail, like kind of like, hey, you've got cancer and we're the only thing that has the cure. Here's
Yeah.
the cure. And that just really, that always
Right.
sat really wrong. I think the thing that is most liberating is that I didn't realize prior to this, and honestly, the whole like converting to Judaism, even if I hadn't converted and just was like, I'm just going to kind of walk my own path, but I'll study Torah or whatever, but walking away from all that, I was all of a sudden back in my own life.
Yeah.
That is and it's the weirdest thing to say that, because a lot of times people are like, what are you talking about?
No, I totally understand. Totally
There's a
understand. I
yeah,
mean,
there's a,
when
yeah,
when I left, it was, because you get it beaten over your head so much that there's nothing you can do of your own volition. You know what I mean?
mm,
This is what you got to do. That's it. You'll never save yourself. Those type of tropes. You know what I mean?
right.
As soon as I left and realized that my life came down to my decisions,
Yeah,
everything changed. I'm not gonna say there isn't, like, I'm not gonna say me and my wife don't have bad days. You know what I mean? But like the way I
of
approached my
course.
marriage, the way I approached my business, the way I approached, my family life, just everything. Everything, when I came down and realized, you know, if I choose good, things are going to be good. If I choose bad, it'll be, you know what I mean? Everything
Right,
comes down to what I choose. It's
right.
it's not so much of I'm this disgusting, sinful, being who could never do any better, you know. Rather, if I want the world to be good, I got to be the good.
Right.
And man, talk about liberation, because it really does put your life in your hands, you know.
Isn't it strange to go from a place where you're like, I'm not worthy as an individual, I'm naturally disposed to doing bad things. All I got to do is I'm just going to give it all to God, and now everything's okay.
Right.
Versus, and that is so restrictive and can be so painful, versus going, I am 100% responsible for my life. There's nobody competing for my soul. I'm
Right.
not driven to my bad choices because of some super entity that competes with God. I'm fully in control, and I'm
Mm.
fully capable. and I'm fully empowered.
Right.
It's weirdly liberating to have all the responsibility given back to you.
Yeah.
It's incredible. There's a song. I love this song so much because I think Carrie Underwood's such a great songwriter. But you know that song "Jesus Take the Wheel" cracks me up. Cracks me up because my immediate response to that is no, nobody. You take the wheel.
Yeah.
No, nobody needs to take the wheel. You drive. You should drive your own car and know that God has empowered you to do it.
Right.
How beautiful is that? How different is that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
I love it. I love this so much. And I think there's so much healing in this. And it's weird to say that because a lot of people, I think, who are maybe starting to question what they believe. And let me say again, like it doesn't, like whatever somebody believes, that's fine. But if somebody is questioning, and I also do believe that this is the truth.
Yes.
I believe this is the truth. So I got asked once, do I think that Judaism is the true religion? Right? They said, is it the truth? And my response is, I 100% believe that. I don't think that diminishes what anybody else believes. This is what I believe. And
Right.
if I didn't, I wouldn't do it. I'm not here to try things on, whether, and it's like you mentioned being a Noahide, right? Like taking that on and those responsibilities and those laws, right? That's a different life, and you're taking ownership of it. And I think it's beautiful. And you wouldn't do that if you didn't think that was what you should do.
Right.
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 I'm not. We're not cosplaying here.
Yeah.
This is the reason I'm doing this is not because my wife is Jewish. It's because this is what I believe. If I didn't, I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't do it at all, because how horrible is that?
Yeah.
How horrible to masquerade. And I felt like I was masquerading in my own life for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And now being into it, I only want to do the things that I'm both committed to, find value in, bring more goodness into my life, our lives, and then that I can do more for the world around me. But I don't want to live in things that I don't believe in anymore.
Definitely. Yeah. It's sometimes I do these interviews and it's like I'm talking to myself. You know what I mean?
Well, we have so much in common, right? All these
Yeah.
stories of people walking away, and it's taboo. By the way, it's so taboo to talk about in Jewish
Yeah.
communities. It can be, because it's not a comfortable conversation.
Right.
A lot of times, I mean, part of what I do is when I'm on tour, I will do a workshop called Choosing to be Chosen, where I tell the story, and I also talk about some of the struggles that people have just in leaving one thing and going into another, what's drawing people to the tribe and all that. The
Mm-hmm.
amount of similarities, like we were just talking about, like you talk to yourself, the amount of similarities you find as people start saying that they want to tell their story, and it's maybe the first time they've said it out loud in public, because they've never felt comfortable doing it. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, it's like these are all these other family members, and you're like, oh, hey, yeah, we've all been through this thing, and it changes you. It fundamentally changes you, but it
Yeah.
also just takes you back to being more who you are. I don't know.
Right.
It's very centering.
And that
But
was
yeah,
actually a
man.
big reason why I started this channel, was to give those beautiful stories a platform to be heard. Because people want to. It's hard to keep in.
Yeah,
It is this taboo subject, but it's like, man, I need to get this off my chest.
right. But it
And
doesn't
then,
have to be taboo.
yeah, it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't be.
That's
I mean,
right.
it shouldn't be.
Right. I told people, I have it in my bio that I converted to Judaism, and I refer to myself sometimes as a convert, and I'm proud of the word. Like I'm great with it, and then people are like, oh, don't you dare say that. Oh, no, that's a horrible thing to say out loud. And I'm like, well, hold up, why? Why do you think it's horrible? Well, it can be a way of like, it's sort of insulting, and I'm like, insulting to who? It's not insulting to me. I love it. And they're like, well, it's like you've always been here, though, so you shouldn't say that. And I kind of very clearly go, I think that is very kind, and it's very sweet, and I get it. Like spiritually, I get it, right? We all come from being around the mountain. That's great. I don't remember that, but I do remember being a Christian, and I do remember having these beliefs, and I do remember living the way that I did.
Right.
And I don't want to forget that. So there was a change, and I don't want to lose that there was change because it helps give so much more context. I don't want to forget what was because it helps me appreciate what is.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't go down this road, there would still be two different times in my life marked by a huge line.
Yeah.
I don't want to forget all this. And you even mentioned this earlier, didn't you? You're like, if not for all this, I wouldn't be here.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to lose that. I think it's important because it I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't want to lose it.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't do it, but I don't want to
Right.
pretend that wasn't me.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
But every moment brought us to where we are now. So.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
okay. To wrap this up in the last few minutes, which of your songs really describe the transformation the best?
Oh yeah. Specifically,
let's get to the music. This is what.
Okay. We're just hanging out, man. Let's do it. Okay, yeah. So what song comes out and really says it? Well, so on the first album is called Unbroken because of the title track is called Unbroken. And I wasn't going to write that song. Saul K, who was a good buddy of mine and was producing the album with me, he said, I need you to write your conversion song. And I said, well, man, there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't know how that's going to go over with people. And it was kind of like that first dip in the toe in the sort of, here's the reasons. And he said, you need to put it all out there. You don't have to be cruel, but you got to be honest and you got to tell your story. And he's a blues musician. And he said, I write blues music. So he goes, all I do is swim in the deep end. He said, but if you're not willing to swim in the deep end, I'm not making this album. And I said, 10-4, man, I'll do it. Yeah. And I did. And so the song's called Unbroken. And it kind of comes right out and just says exactly the reasons.
Yeah.
With and
story. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
That was the song I was introduced to you by
really?
a friend of mine who was on this show just like you are right now. He texted me this song and said, dude, listen to this. This is us. And I listened to the song and I'm like, wow, you're right. I got to talk to this guy.
Oh, thanks, man.
And then I Googled you and I see Stuart Federer. I'm like, no way, Stuart Federer. Yeah. So I texted Stuart. I was like, hey, is there any chance you could get me in contact with Mr. Joe Buchanan? Yeah, sure. Send me your phone number. But yeah, Stuart's I heard Unbroken. I was like, now mind you, I don't even really like country music. My dad's like a huge Luke Combs fan, and all he sings about is his mother-in-law and beer. You know what I mean? And I'm like, you know what I mean? and I'm like, okay, this is cool, but like, where's the content? You know what I mean? Like, where's
right?
And I heard Unbroken, and I was like, wow, this guy's on something. So I check out the whole album, and then I got to the song Here, Shema. I kid you not, I put that on repeat for hours and just sat there to that song.
Wow.
Like, that song touched me like a song hasn't touched me in years. Honest to God.
Oh, thanks, man. That's the first song I wrote when I started wanting to write Jewish music. Really just started off for myself. I wasn't planning on playing it anywhere. I was just writing for me to kind of understand the prayers better and understand what I was going through. And then Stuart heard it and was like, go do this. But yeah, Here was the very first Jewish song I wrote.
Wow.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, man, when I say it moved me. I mean, it moved me. Like, because that's the central creed of Judaism.
Right.
That's everything. And to hear you express it that way, like, this is us, we're chosen, you know what I mean? This is us.
Yeah.
Listen, Shema, and yeah. Just
the reason that song was the first one that was written is during the process of going through all the classes and you have to attend a certain number of services and all this, going to my first Friday night service, and you hear as we're going through the prayer book through the Siddur, everybody, some people are singing out loud, some people are singing quietly, some people are kind of like a half step sort of off from the person next to them, that's just how it goes in a community, in a congregation. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing, guiding through, although we're technically sort of on the same page. It's interesting. But when we got to the Shema, that was the first time that I have ever heard suddenly a room full of people that were just in the same band. And it was like, I mean, I've been to concerts where everybody knows the words. That's different, right? This was everybody's in the same band and they've been doing this for generations. And you could hear it. You could sort of hear that this was taught to them by their parents and by their parents. And like, you could feel that moment. And I thought, wow, this is the coolest thing. One of the coolest things I've ever experienced.
Right.
So that's really what drove me to
I could
write
only
that.
imagine. I could only imagine. Probably feels like you probably feel like you could hear Moses saying it, right? You know,
Oh
like,
yeah, but like exactly. That was exactly. It was like this massive, long, like generational line that you could almost hear happening in that room. It was wild, just wild. Yeah.
So on the new album, is there anything else? Any more drawbacks, or are you settling into more so of Judaism rather than a transition?
Definitely settling into Judaism, but there's still some things. I always say the first album is kind of like the journey home. It's a lot of discovery and, introducing some things sort of for the first time as I was finding them out. And then Back from Babylon is really about kind of the what you find when you get there and the things you realize you still have to work on. That the work's not done. Just because you got home doesn't mean that you don't still need to, sweep the floors from time to time.
Yeah, right.
But there is still, it's very much, I'm trying to think of the best way to answer this for you. There are so many things that I think are misunderstandings that I want to clarify. And there's a lot more songs being written about things in the Torah, and then the way that they sort of apply to our lives. Like there's a song on there called "The Unbinding," which is really Isaac singing to his father, begging him not to take his life, and saying, "Look at who you were, not what what you've interpreted as what you're supposed to do, but look at who you are and." Beg for a single life because, there weren't 10, but there's one, and one is enough to beg for. And, we're writing a song right now called Float that's all about the people that didn't make it on Noah's Ark, and that Noah sure built the boat, did all that, but didn't go tell anyone to change their ways.
Right.
Didn't say to God, hey, give me a couple of months. Let me see what I can do. I can help some people. Didn't do that. Just built the boat. And went. And it's being sung from the perspective of someone who didn't make it on the boat, who's very self-righteous and angry about it. So like exploring those different sides of different stories to try to create some depth and a way to say, look, you can question certain things. You can dive deep into the meaning behind this, as opposed to just surface level. This was this great, and then we move on. No. Let's look at it. How do we apply the Torah to our lives?
Exactly.
And how can I do some stuff through music to help highlight some of these things, to go, oh, well, and maybe bring some more like table conversations around these things. So there's a real focus on doing that.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, really, that's a good friend of mine. He's a convert. And he's, very talented fella. He's has a doctorate in psychology. We don't got to get into his whole life story, but he's actually working on, like he's a real big scholar, like a real big Bible scholar. He's textbooks and all sorts of stuff. But he's working on a commentary, from like a psychology point and history and archaeology. I mean, he has his fingers in all this stuff, and he's working on a Bible commentary to really give you the humanity of the Bible, right? Like to put you in the shoes of who you're reading about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
that's hugely, I think that's so important.
It's so
because
important.
we have figures in the Torah whom we forget that these were people. And they made mistakes. They did great things. We should celebrate what's good, and we can also learn from things. Just because someone did something good, it doesn't mean that, well, we have to hold them in the highest light possible, because if we shine a light on any of the bad stuff they did, then all of a sudden they're not good anymore. No, people are multifaceted. That people make mistakes, and they can rise from them. Some didn't, and some did, and there's value in all of it.
Yeah, like to keep on the topic of the binding, like you had mentioned.
Yep.
Like, can we really believe that Abraham was happy to do it? Or was he a father? Was he a human that, okay, God, if that, you know what I mean? If that's what you want,
Right. Can
and
I tell you
he's
my thought on that?
and he's looking at his son walking up the mountain, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
how hard was this? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. These are two different people, right? You look at Abraham early on, Sodom and Gomorrah, right? And this is really kind of where the song kind of takes some of this stuff from, is that you look at Sodom and Gomorrah and Abraham's like, no, absolutely not. Challenges God. Will not the God of justice do right? How dare you just destroy all these people? There's good people in there. Believing in the goodness of others and the sanctity of life itself. And God's like, there's not, there's not. There's not good people in there. And Abraham's like, what if there's like 45 or whatever? And he whittles it down to 10. Wakes up the next morning. There's got to be 10 righteous people, right? Wakes up the next morning, smoke and ruin. There weren't. What does that do to somebody?
Right.
This belief in the goodness of other people and in life and all of this, what does that do to someone? Goes to the next town, and when is challenged about, hey, how come you said that Sarah is your sister when that's your wife, and all this kind of this whole conversation. And then Abraham ends up saying, like, I know nobody here loves the Lord. Well, Abraham doesn't know that, but just came from a place where there weren't 10 righteous people in two huge cities. So the belief in the goodness of others and the power of the individual and people and responsible, all that is dwindling until finally God comes to him again and says, because it says, bring your son, the one you love, and bind them as a sacrifice in a place that I'll show you. Not sacrifice them, bind them as a sacrifice. And all Abraham says is, okay, I'm here. Hineni, right? I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
And going up the mountain, and Isaac's like, hey, where's the sacrifice? And Abraham's like, God will provide. Goes up, binds him, and then in an act that was never something he was supposed to do, brings the knife down and is stopped by an angel, right? And then there's the ram, like, hey, look, Abraham, there's the ram over here. There's the sacrifice. And I always think that like that was done to alleviate some of Abraham's guilt and shame so that he doesn't live out his life completely destroyed by what he was about to do. But an angel stops his hand, and God and Abraham never speak again.
Mm-hmm.
They talked constantly. They were like this. I think Abraham's even referred to as like a friend at some point in the way the Torah describes their relationship.
Yep.
They never speak again. Why? I think the answer is that was the test. And for me, my personal thought on it is that I don't think he passed the test. I think he went from this person who was the right person, and then something happened along the way, and it didn't go well at the end. And maybe there's a reason that we call them the laws of Moses and not the laws of Abraham. Abraham wasn't the one to carry the Torah.
Right.
And it's heartbreaking because we hold Abraham up as like, look at all the smashing of the idols and championing God. It did beautiful, wonderful things, challenged God. Oh, great. Yeah. But and you also notice that when God approaches Moses later on, or when Moses finds God, right? Because really that's what it is God waiting to be discovered again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's very different. It's not close and personal. It's I will not turn my face towards you, and you will take my words down to. I'm not going to go down there and I'm not going to be talking to people, because that just did not go well not too long ago. And I think that later on, I'm almost done, I promise. I think later on when God talks about human sacrifice, like this I hate, maybe also recalling that relationship with Abraham, right, and how badly that broke. It's heartbreaking. God's the loneliest figure in the Torah. I don't remember where I heard that, but
yeah, definitely,
man, just rough. There's a lot of blues in the Torah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beauty, but there's a lot of blues too.
Yeah, and that's one of those things. I mean, I've certainly heard that perspective before,
Yeah.
And I think it's a I can see both sides.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Sure, I can see
Absolutely.
both sides, But I think when we step back and realize, yes, we need to be obedient, but at the same time, we can't get jaded.
Right.
You know, we can't let life beat us down so bad that, we forget who we are,
Right.
and yeah, definitely a beautiful way of looking at it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. The Torah is a well that just keeps giving and giving and giving and giving.
Yeah. 100%. 70 faces, right?
Yeah.
But anything new on the horizon?
Actually, yeah, there is.
Cool.
We started at the top of the pandemic. I started this thing. All my gigs, got a, hey buddy, my dog is trying to come up here and see me. All of our gigs, of course, got canceled because you couldn't be in person. So I started this thing called Tableside Shabbat on Friday nights on our Facebook page. I plugged in all my studio gear and I just started going live because I was like, I want to keep praying with people and doing prayer with people. And I'm not going to be anywhere, so might as well do it from here. And it took off. I mean, there were people from all over that they didn't have, maybe their shul didn't have an online service yet. So I popped up in their news feed. And anyway, over time, the last couple of years, this community it's really grown, and it's forced me to write and study more prayer music. I normally wouldn't write any prayer music unless I needed to. And this, all of a sudden, I don't have a license to play other people's music, so I need to finish my original service. And I did. So now we're both recording a third album of Jewish music, all very very much country music, and then also a separate one that is a more intimate, stripped down album that's all the Shabbat music that's been written.
Cool, awesome. Sounds incredible, man. Definitely.
Thanks. It's a lot.
Yeah, but off air here, you and I were discussing a little bit, and we'll wrap up because I know we both have stuff to do. But off air, we were talking about how, for much of my Christian life, I was a very passionate musician. I played the saxophone. It's an instrument. If you've never played it before, it's an instrument that's very easy to get like carried away with. The smoothness. You know what I mean? Like, I don't play the guitar, so I can't like obviously sing and play my instrument at the same time.
Right.
So the saxophone almost becomes like an extension of yourself. And
ooh, yeah.
every emotion comes out of the horn rather than out of your mouth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there's no question why like jazz is very smooth and soulful, and a friend of mine, he writes country music also. I told him, I was like, we should do like a collab of the two American genres, jazz and country, and just mash them together and make something incredible.
100%.
Of course, that never happened. But that being said, it's just something that spiritually I got very connected with. Like if I was at church on Sunday and I couldn't play my saxophone for whatever reason, it was like this service was a waste. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean?
I do.
It was such a spiritual experience for me, and just really a way I felt I connected with God. But as something I said before, all those notes went to the wrong place, is how I feel about it now. But
man, that's beautiful.
Hearing this Jewish music, whether it be Nissan Black, Joe Buchanan, it's lighting that spark in me again. Like, I didn't learn this instrument for no reason,
Yeah.
Like, that was a conscious choice. I mean, it was my free will in third grade to decide to play the saxophone.
Yeah.
So,
you mentioned talking about it off air when we were talking about the saxophone thing, and I'll bring this up also because now, if this is going to be part of the show, we're going to put it in the universe. I would 100% love to have you at a show sometime. We'll come on up and we'll play a song together, and you can bust out your sax and bring it into something. I would love to hear you play that instrument, man, and focus. I love the word kavanah, right? Direction of the heart. And when you the idea when you were like, you don't sing and play the instrument at the same time, it's all focused through the instrument. That really just moved me, and I would love to hear you play sometime, man. I really would. I really would.
Yeah, I would love to. I would love to make that a reality. So
Yeah. Well, it's out there now. It's out there now.
yeah, it's in YouTube land. We can't get it back, right?
That's
So,
right. That's right. It's done.
but yeah, so I hope maybe one day I can, really get back into that again. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it was such a huge part of my life, and now I just don't have it. It kind of feels like something's missing, you know.
Yeah.
But it seems like everything is in steps, whether it be like for the channel, am I willing to even teach or talk about the Bible anymore?
Right.
That was like my first transition from preaching, you know what I mean, is even being open to share what Hashem lays on me.
Right.
And then, so I'm starting to feel like maybe this is my next point. Am I ready to bring music back?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Well,
third grade,
as a
man, it was ingrained in me since I was 10. So it's really been hard not to. It's just I really think for a while I store them in my dining room on a stand, all my saxophones, and I would just get the unction to pick them up and play. But I would notice that I feel myself going to those songs. A big thing I always did, I never like played with sheet music in church or anything like that. I played completely by ear and pretty much wrote everything on the spot.
Fantastic.
So when I would play, I would feel myself getting into that zone, and I think that's a big reason why I had to let it go.
Right.
And I picked it up not too long ago. I heard a Kenny G song at Boscov's or the department store or something. I was like, man, I need to play my sax, and
Yeah.
I picked it up and I played it, and I didn't feel that anymore. So I think it's Hashem telling me, you know what, maybe it's time, maybe I can open that book back up, So
Yeah, man. It's like that door is open now. You get to decide if you're going to walk through it.
right. Right.
I like
Right.
it. I'm here for it, man. I think I'll tell you what, I think the world needs a lot more intentional stuff. And there's a lot of room, man. There's a lot of room. And I would sure love to hear it. And if you decide to ever put out your album, I want to be the first. I want to be the first in line
Yeah.
to get a signed copy. I'm here for it, man. I would love to. I would love to hear it.
I think that album would have to be rewritten, but yeah, for sure. That album actually, I wrote that when most of it was covers.
Wait a minute. There's an album?
There was, yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I meant your new album from playing sax. Oh, tell me about this, man. Tell me about this.
I actually had when I was a Christian, I had written one original song, and the rest was all like hymns that I covered on my saxophone.
Wow.
And the one song was called Beyond Words. That's what the name of the album was too. I mean, it did have lyrics with it that a friend of mine was going to sing like in the background.
Right.
But I had to let it go. I just had to.
For sure.
But yeah, I mean,
that
maybe
distance.
We'll have to cover some Joe Buchanan.
Man, I'll tell you what, I'll send you some sheet music. You jump up there, rip some solos. I also I can't read sheet music. When I started learning guitar, I was pretty young. I wanted to play, and I don't remember if we couldn't afford lessons. We probably couldn't. And I was a bad student anyway, so it would have been lost on me. And I gave up guitar for a long time until Judaism happened, really. And then I felt like I had a reason to pick it back up. I had a need, and writing songs is how I better understand things sometimes, and how I can better communicate things that I'm finding out, or messages and stuff. So, or not, I don't mean sound like weird when I say messages. I mean like how to communicate stuff that I'm discovering, and I want to find a way to put it into words. Sometimes a song is the best way for me to do that. So that's why I picked up my guitar again. But yeah, I don't use sheet music, but I have it all written out for the for anything. So yeah, man, you're always invited. Cool. Always invited.
And final thing, and then we'll sign off. I think what really inspired me, I had mentioned that Kenny G song. I
Yeah.
can't think of what the name of the song. Oh, In Your Eyes. It's by The Weeknd. Are you familiar with this
Okay.
song? In Your
I'm
Eyes by
familiar
The
with The
Weeknd.
Weeknd.
Okay. So The Weeknd song In Your Eyes, it's like a lovey-dovey song. Well, Kenny G, it's Kenny G and The Weeknd. He comes in and just saxophizes it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
What a
The
great
Weeknd
word.
is still singing and all that. Yeah. The Weeknd is still singing and all that, and then you just have Kenny G playing in the fills,
Right.
So I'm going to give you a proposition. If you ever want to make an In Your Eyes Joe Buchanan of here, that would
Oh,
be the most incredible, because that's the song that touched me. And if you really want
okay.
to play the sax, if you want to hear the notes go to the right place,
Mm,
let me harmonize on that song with you, and
yeah.
yeah, that would be it.
Consider it done, man. I'm planning on re-recording some of those with some different arrangements and things like that, just to kind of honor where we are now with the music.
Mhm.
Balder, I hear you. Very talkative. He's a very talkative. He's actually he's a Horgie. So we got him from a family that couldn't keep him, but he's a mix of a Corgi and a Husky.
Oh, you
And he's
said Horgy. I
very
was afraid there was like some horse in there or something.
yeah, he's half horse, but he's very vocal. Like he
Yeah.
talks all the time, or he thinks he's talking. But yeah, so we're gonna re-record here, and so if you're putting that out there, I'll formally invite you to be on that recording, and we'll
Wow.
write it for both parts.
Wow, that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, consider it done. That's a done deal.
Awesome, man. Wow. Wow. Well, everybody, Joe Buchanan. I'm going to link your website. Anything else you may want linked in the description.
No, that's where you can find me. That's where you can find all of it.
All right, cool. So we will link that in the description, along with all the normal, resources we have in the description, books, whichever, Rabbi Federer's book, etc. We have all that linked in the description for you guys. But yeah, I'm ecstatic. I really enjoyed sitting down, talking with you. Beautiful story, beautiful human being, and and beautiful music, guys. Honestly, if you want your soul to be moved, check it out. Like if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. I'm not a big fan of country music, but this
I
is
hear that a lot.
This is something else. This is incredible. Yeah.
Oh, thank you, brother. It's been such a delight to speak with you, and I can't wait to do it again. I can't wait to hang out in person with you sometime, hopefully soon.
But all right, my friend. Until next time, everybody. This was the Exodus Project, and we'll catch you on the other side.